Please tell me you're watching the video. Please, my hair is looking fierce, dude. I finally blow dried my bangs. I've been so lazy about that, and she's looking voluminous. Oh, I feel like a little 70s queen. My hair's big and disco-y. Anyways, I'm so glad, though, I will say. I'm so glad the lighting in here sucks the way sometimes I hate it, obviously, because it's, gross. But right now, I appreciate the fact that it sucks, because my skin is another story. And she's making me mad. But anyways, I'm just going to get right into today. I know the last episode was pretty long. Just like I had mentioned, I had a lot to say on the topic. I don't think today's episode will be that long. I like to keep these short because I definitely don't think that people sit around and listen to an hour or 2 hour long podcast. I don't. So I'll try to keep this one short, and I will just hop right into it. So obviously last episode we discussed relationships, and I discussed more so romantic relationships. So today's episode I kind of just wanted to follow that a little bit, and wanted to talk about closure in relationships. Again, just the idea of my experience with romantic relationships, where I'm at now and things like that. It has brought up a lot of different topics for me and things that I could potentially talk about on here, and I think closure is a big one. The other reason why I wanted to bring it up is I've had this conversation with a lot of people in my life about, are you someone that needs closure, or you, because I realized, I think more recently I realized that is a very different experience for everyone. I kind of think I originally thought that closure was kind of like a one size fits all thing. You either get it or you don't. But I think as I've gotten older, I realized it's a lot more complicated than that. And I think especially in your 20s, because it's such a, I don't know if volatile is the right word. Hold on, I'm gonna look that up. What does volatile mean? Because I feel like that's what I'm trying to say, but I'm not positive. Yeah! Oh my god. So smart. I'm literally a genius. So, yes. I think because your 20s are such a volatile time, one of those things like closure can be almost make or break, or can be really significant, whether that be positive or negative. And so I kind of wanted to discuss how I feel about it, do I need it, do I not? And yeah, I think that's about it. So, like I said, I've learned that it's different for everyone. I've learned that, and not only is it, different in terms of do you need it, do you not, but the type of closure you're looking for. Again, I think more recently this has changed, but I think before this I had thought that closure was, you either get some sort of attention from that person, or you get an apology you wanted. And what I've realized now as I've gotten older is it doesn't even necessarily need to be that for some people. For some, it's simply, I want to say my piece, and once I say my piece, this chapter is closed. So I've definitely learned there's different versions of it for everyone. Some people may be looking for a response, when some people may be looking for a very specific response. Some people simply may just want to, get out what they have to say and call it a day. For me, I don't feel like I need closure. I think it would, I think if again, we're getting married, I don't care, but if my boyfriend and I now broke up in an alternate universe, because it's not happening in this one, I think if we broke up, I would definitely need closure from that, because it's been such an important relationship for me, and a very positive one. So I think it would do some damage if we broke up. So I think I would definitely need closure from something like that, as positively significant as this relationship is. But I have past relationships in my life where I didn't get closure from them, and I kind of made my peace with that. And I think for me the reason is I knew that that if I reached out to these people and said, hey, you know, I just wanted to say what I needed to say, I would be looking for a response, and I would either not get a response or not get the one I was looking for. And I knew that these people just probably didn't care. So I accepted the fact that I didn't need closure from these people, and, you know, I sort of gained my closure on my own. Which I think there is something to be said about that as well. I think, you know, as much as there's this idea that you can, you know, you have to get closure from, you know, the person who either hurt you or the person who this relationship ended with or something. Not that that's not true, but I also feel like there's not enough emphasis on you can also get that closure yourself. Again, it's different for everyone, so, you know, you do what you feel you need to do. But I think, especially when it comes to relationships, I think everyone becomes really disconnected from themselves. You know, it becomes a lot more about the other person and making sure that, like, the other person's good and, like, we're good in the relationship and things are okay. And that's important, of course, but, you know, I think sometimes you can get so far into making sure the other person is okay, and so far into making sure that this dynamic works and is okay, that you kind of lose the ability to, or you lose sight of the fact that you are also your own person, and you can develop these things on your own. So especially something like closure, you know, if you are looking for a specific response and you're not going to get it, like, I do think it's possible to just kind of gain that closure on your own. Like, for me, like I mentioned in the last episode, I did a lot of introspection, and with that came really understanding, for me at least, who these people seemed like to me, you know, how they came off. And, you know, I realized, like, okay, if I did reach out, like, they probably won't care, and, you know, that may just make me feel worse. And I think there's something empowering about, I'm gonna close this chapter on my own. I don't need this person's help. I don't, you know, and I think that's different. I think there's like, if it was a positive relationship and it just ended, or things happened, whatever, I think that's different, versus, like, for me, these relationships for me were very negative, and so really reaching out would have done nothing except to make me feel worse. So there was something very empowering saying, you know what, I'm gonna do this on my own, and, you know, kind of close that chapter on my own and understand and what happened and take what I can get from it. But I don't need that other person's help. I think that's somewhat different for, you know, positive relationship that ends. But even still, like, sometimes, you know, that's just as damaging because it just hurts a lot. And so, you know, I still think there's something to be said about finding that closure on your own. But, you know, it's a different journey for everyone. Period. I don't know. And I also think, with that being said, sometimes it almost just feels like you're elongating a situation that doesn't need to be elongated. Like, again, if you were in a very maybe toxic situation or just a negative situation, you know, sometimes reaching out is just simply, you know, it's keeping you tethered to that person when you really don't need to be. And so I think there's something to be said there as well about, you know, do you really need that closure from the other person? Because now you're just, you know, here's another way in which you're now entangled with this person who maybe wasn't that great for you. So I think that there's something there, as well as, you know, if you are someone that really needs closure from the other person, like, what is this really doing for you? So for me, I've learned that closure, at least with the situations I was in previously, and I'm talking about romantic situations, that was something that I needed to do on my own. That was something I didn't want to involve the other people in. I knew that I wasn't going to probably get the response or apology, frankly, that I was looking for, and there was no need to keep myself involved with these people. And again, I felt, for me personally, finding closure within myself and doing it myself was really empowering, and it didn't feel like, you know, I just felt like, okay, you know, I'm okay to distance myself from these people because I've got it. Like, I can do this on my own, sort of thing. But I wrote down here, I think when it comes to closure, there's some things to think about when, you know, when it's between, do I reach out to this person and involve them in this process, or do I do it on my own? Again, everyone's different, and so, like, if you need to reach out to the person, you need to reach out to the person. If you don't, then you don't. You know, I don't think this is, like, a end-all, be-all sort of thing. Like, you are you, and you know what's best for you. But I wrote down here, oh my god, what's happening? Sorry, I have, like, a bubble in my throat. Okay. I wrote down here some things to think about, I guess, before maybe reaching out to this person or deciding, like, if you need closure. Oh my god, I'm gonna sneeze. Sorry. Oh my gosh. My allergies are really bad this morning. I think maybe that's what was happening, was, like, there was mucus buildup or something. I feel gross. Ew. Anyways, so what I wrote down here is, I guess, sort of, like, questions to ask yourself, to maybe, like, help guide you on understanding, like, do I get closure from this person, or do I involve them in this process, or do I not? The biggest one, I think, first is, will they care? You know, sometimes I feel like people reach out, and I will say, let me preface this, I'm making generalizations. I don't know, obviously, why people do sometimes what they do, but these are just observations I have made in my life. But I think the first question is, will they care? I think some people reach out and try and gain closure from these people as a, like, last attempt to, like, make them care about them. And I think, you know, again, for me, I'm talking about this in, like, a really negative manner, because that's really, I think, where I've had the most experience with closure. I think it's slightly different for positive situations where you're just like, this was really good, but, like, you know, things happened. So take this with a grain of salt, because I am looking at it at a bit of, like, a more negative lens, I guess. But, you know, I do think sometimes people reach out because this is, like, a last-ditch effort to, you know, see if this person genuinely gives a shit. And I think if you have to put yourself in that position, like, I think even just needing to put yourself in that position says a lot. But I think that's an important question to ask yourself if you are debating on reaching out to this person, or, I guess, you know, again, involving them in the process of closure. Like, is this an attempt to make them care, and will they? Because I think that tells you a lot about a person in and of itself. I think following that, do you care if they don't? Again, some people, simply their version of closure is, I need to get this off my chest, and then we never need to speak again. I don't even need a response from you, but I just need you to know this. So, you know, if that's the case, then, like, great. But again, like, do you care if they don't care? Because people won't. Like, not everyone's gonna, like, care that you were hurt or care that you're upset. Like, unfortunately, that's just, like, the way it is. So I think, you know, following will they care is, do you care if they don't? Because if there is something to be said there, then, you know, I think that requires more thought then about, like, what you should and shouldn't be doing. I'm also not trying to tell you how to live your life. Again, if you need closure, whatever. I just think these are, like, you know, things to ask yourself, maybe to, like, make things not as difficult, or maybe not hurt as much, ? I don't know, maybe. Again, kind of like I said about the caring thing, is this a last-ditch effort to make them stay? I think I've seen a lot of people, again, they try and gain closure, and it sometimes feels like, and I've definitely done this as well, it sometimes feels like it's almost like kind of hand in hand with, you know, is this an attempt to make them care? You know, if they see how hurt I am, then they'll stay because, you know, they don't want to hurt me. But again, I think someone who genuinely cares about you wouldn't put you in this position anyway, so I think that there's something to think about there, as well as, you know, what is the motive behind this closure? Is it genuinely to gain closure, or is it, you know, to see if you can maybe, like, rekindle something? How could walking away impact you positively? I think that's something that is really important. You know, I think a lot of people look at walking away from a relationship as, like, what am I, you know, I'm losing something, versus, you know, especially in toxic situations or just negative situations, or, again, just situations maybe that just aren't right. maybe reframing it a little bit, instead of, why do I need this closure? Why is this closure so important? I need it. Versus, okay, if I did walk away, if maybe I didn't, reach out to them to gain this closure, like, how would that help me? Versus, like, how is this hurting me? How would walking away impact me in a positive way? What would I gain from that? Because I think that also, like, shifts perspective a bit from negative to positive, and I think sometimes that can, it feels a little less strenuous to think about, or at least, like, a little less, just, like, negative, and it doesn't maybe hurt as less, or hurt as much. So I think that's definitely a good thing to think about when you're thinking about reaching out to someone for closure. What if I don't, and how would that positively impact me? And then the other thing I put down here is, are you looking for an apology you may not receive? Again, I feel like sometimes, and I'm saying this from experience, people reach out hoping that, like, they'll get an apology. And my take on it is, if people are willing to hurt you in the first place, because I think 9 times out of 10 people know what they're doing. So I think if people are willing to hurt you in the first place, or put you in uncomfortable positions, or whatever it may be, they probably are not sorry about it, or they probably don't care. So it's like, if you're reaching out to get an apology, this person already was so willing to make you feel this way, why would they apologize for it? You know what I mean? Because I think that was the biggest one for me I had to learn as I got older was, these people are not sorry about what they did. They know what they did, and they're okay with it. And so if you're looking for an apology, good luck, sort of thing. So I think, I think the biggest thing is understanding your motive behind the closure. If it's to gain closure, great. If it's to maybe attempt them to, or lure them back in, attempt to make them care, try and wrangle an apology out of someone, then I think you have to think a bit harder about, like, why are you doing what you're doing? But I do think closure is a very complicated process, and again, it's different for everyone. I think especially as we get older, I think dynamics change, and your thought processes change, and it's an interesting concept, to say the least, just in general, if you think about it. But that's my take on that. I tried to keep this short. I didn't really keep it short, but whatever. But yeah, rate the pod if you like it. If you don't rate it. I'm serious. Follow me on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can follow me on TikTok and Instagram at scared20something. Also, email me. Let's keep these conversations going. Honestly, I'm nosy, and I want to know what are y'all's takes on things like this. My email is scared20something@gmail.com. And did I mention YouTube? Again, for Apple Podcast listeners, if you want to watch instead of just listen, check it out on YouTube at scared20something, and I'll catch you on the flip.